The topic I want to get to here first is a story about Beth Moore. Ever heard of Beth Moore? She's a prominent evangelical. She's a white woman. She's a teacher. Now, she's not a preacher. She doesn't have a church. She's a teacher on biblical topics, and she's decided to leave the Southern Baptist Convention, and she said among her reason, was a staggering disorientation of seeing denominational leaders support Trump. Oh, boy. Well, when I saw this was in the New York Times. When I saw this morning, I thought, okay, there's the first topic. And it's written by Ruth Graham and Elizabeth Dias at the New York Times. And they point out from the very beginning the marriage of convenience between these white, always got to say white, conservative Christians and Trump look like a devoted marriage. The reason being that the whites voted for Trump overwhelmingly in 2016, stuck with him in 2020, brushing aside his lies and bullshit and sexual impropriety to support a man they saw as their protector. Really? You white evangelical Christians needed a protector? Why, I thought that's what God offered you. My bad. But as the Times points out, not everybody who swore fealty to this filthy pig was content. So now we have one of the most prominent white evangelical women in the United States breaking with her longtime denomination, the Southern Baptist Convention. And let's not forget why the Southern Baptist Convention was born. It was born as a racist, hate-filled bunch of Christians who decided they didn't want any Negroes coming into their churches. Oh no. But Ms. Moore cited the staggering disorientation of seeing leaders support Trump and the cultural and spiritual, I'll call it, deterioration from that support. She told Religion News Service in an interview published day before yesterday, quote, "There comes a time when you have to say, this is not who I am. I'm still a Baptist, but I can no longer identify with Southern Baptists," end quote. Now, here's the problem. She has quite a bit of stature in the Christian evangelical movement, and so her decision to bail out poses a real challenge for the Southern Baptist Convention, one that they will ignore, of course. And the SBC, as we call it, here in the South, has already been embroiled for years in debates, not just about Trump, but about racism, misogyny, the handling of sexual abuse cases, cases involving their leaders, raping, assaulting, sexually abusing young girls, middle-aged women. Oh yeah, it's not just the priests who like to rape members of the parish. No. So Jamar Tisby, who's the president of a black Christian collective called The Witness, he said that her departure, quote, is tectonic in its reverberations. He added, quote, "Beth Moore has more influence and more cachet with Southern Baptists, especially white Southern Baptist women, than the vast majority of Southern Baptist pastors or other leaders. So her leaving is not just about one individual leaving," end quote. Now, the thing about Beth is she's, like I mentioned earlier, she's not a traditional leader in the SVC. And by the way, that's the largest Protestant denomination in the country. Of course, it's also the most racist. Isn't that funny? Isn't that a just amazing coincidence? The largest Protestant denomination in the United States is also the most racist and was founded, just like this country was, on racism. But I digress. She doesn't lead a church. She's a woman, obviously, and the SBC reserves pastors, the office of pastors for, people who have their sexual equipment dangling between their legs. Women are not invited. But she arguably has deeper loyalty and more influence than some of these bastards often called on as spokesmen for evangelicalism. That's why when any network, any television station at all gets in touch with Franklin Graham, that racist pig son of a bitch, son of Billy Graham, for a comment about Christianity, I almost lose my supper. I mean, Franklin Graham, a hate-filled, twisted, demented man, and they call on him so often. I notice some of the more balanced news outlets are no longer doing that because he's such a son of a bitch, but he's still out there. Anyway, Ms. Moore has described the election of 2016 as a turning point for her. And she began speaking out after the Access Hollywood tape. Remember that released just a few weeks before the election? Well, you got to grab them by the pussy. They love it, especially if you're famous. And since then, Miss Beth Moore has become increasingly outspoken, the Times says, online, and has exerted her authority and power in new ways that have challenged the male-dominated culture of evangelicalism. Male-dominated culture, yeah. So anyway, if you remember, I do remember this, back in 2018, she published a letter she addressed it to what she called her, quote, brothers in Christ. And that letter shared her experiences with sexism as a female leader in the conservative Christian world, white Christian world. Black evangelicalism, black Christianity is something I certainly can be comfortable with, even though I'm an atheist. How about that? And as far as leadership positions in the black church, women being leaders in the black church, absolutely. But I digress again. On Twitter, where Beth Moore now has just about 1 million followers, she has denounced Christian nationalism, what I call Christian fascism. She calls it, these are her words, the demonic stronghold of white supremacy. Holy shit. Do you realize what this woman's saying? The demon-owned stronghold of white supremacy. Ooh, knock me over with a feather. And she denounces, quote, the sexism and misogyny that is rampant in the SBC. My, who'd have thunk, huh? Now, Miss Moore, Beth Moore, has become a kind of lightning rod, according to the Times, for critics of the Southern Baptist Convention from the right. In 2019, an offhand online remark, I'm quoting from the Times, an offhand online remark from Ms. Moore about speaking at a Sunday morning service on Mother's Day set off a sprawling evangelical debate about whether women should be allowed to preach in church. One California megachurch pastor told her to, quote, go home, end quote. Now, her departure within the Southern Baptist Convention, and one would assume in white evangelicalism across the country, has so far been greeted largely by either silence or bullshit. The president of the Southern Baptist Convention, J.D. Greer, said in a statement, quote, I have loved and appreciated Beth Moore's ministry and will continue to in the future, end quote. He said he hoped the news of Beth Moore's departure would cause the denomination to, quote, lament. To lament. Oh my God. Yeah. And rededicate itself to core values. You son of a bitches have no idea what core values are, you crazy bastard. Your whole organization, your whole cult was formed on racism. Give me a break. And then Ronnie Floyd, this racist little pig. Oh, man. See, we know about Ronnie here in the South. Truly, we do. But he's the president and CEO of the Southern Baptist Convention's Executive Committee. He said in a statement this, quote, "It saddens me to hear from those like Beth who no longer feel at home within our convention," end quote. Who no longer feel at home within our convention. Well, you sorry son of a bitch, you. Now, Beth Moore has also publicly supported others critical of this bullshit. This week, Mr. Tisby, the president of the Black Christian Collective, he's the one who I mentioned just a second ago, who is the head of, what's that organization? Witness, Jemar Tisby. He's the president of Black Christian Collective. He described on a podcast for the first time his experience of racism in white evangelical Christian fascist, I'm adding those words, communities. According to the Times, his testimony was part of a campaign called #LeaveLoud to tell the stories of Black Christians leaving evangelical congregations and denominations. And Beth Moore replied to him on Twitter. Beth Moore wrote, quote, "Jemar, one of the most powerful podcasts I've ever heard. You will be a hero to your descendants, and you are one of mine," end quote. Because what did Jemar, may I call you Jemar? I guess I shouldn't. What did Mr. Tisby say on his podcast? He was telling the story of the racism in the family of Jesus Christ. And again, I've said this before, the people who claim to be in the family of Jesus of Nazareth, the rabbi. Such bullshit. And I've said before, if these white, southern, northern, western, I don't give a shit where they're from, these white SPC types, these white Christian evangelicals, if they could see a real picture of the person that they swear devotion to, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, or Jesus of Nazareth, let's leave out the Christ part, Jesus of Nazareth, they would see a dark-skinned, short, swarthy, black curly-haired little guy who would not be allowed into their convention because he's not white. Just unbelievable shit here. I mean, this is why I lose my mind over this stuff. I just lose my mind over it. I good God. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.